This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including Bally Sports Ohio without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. It's summertime and the podcasting is easy. There is nothing better than some stress-free Cleveland Cavaliers hoops. We are going to be talking Summer League today, and of course, I couldn't be doing that without my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, buddy. About to hit the road for work. CDL champs, Call of Duty fans, happening in Dallas, Texas this weekend. So, big trip ahead of me, and just doing all the rigmarole that comes with hitting the road. Doing laundry, getting things packed.
I'm awful for that. I always wait until the very last minute to pack, and I inevitably forget some things. While we're getting some plugs in here, you were on our buddy Mac Perry's podcast, It's Cavalier Talking Summer League as well. I'm going to give a little bit of a blind shout out and a blind recommendation for that, because I'll be honest, this was not a big podcast listening day for me at work. I was catching up after a week off and doing a lot of, heads down report stuff at work, and that's a time for music. And plus, Sturgill just dropped a new album, so that's become my entire personality for the foreseeable future.
I'm going to give it a shot just to give you, because I haven't listened to Sturgill yet in my music listening career, and I have some friends who quite like him, and you're one of them. So I will give him a shot, maybe on the plane.
So the thing about him is every single album is pretty much a different genre. Like, it all sounds like him. But this latest one, based on some of your, music takes, I know both of us like the Weaker Thans and stuff like that. It is definitely, as Bomani Jones likes to call it, some recreational sadness.
I love some recreational sadness.
I think you'll like this one in particular, but we're not here to talk that. We are barely experts on basketball. Forget music. We are here to talk some Summer League. The Cavs are 1-1 so far in Vegas, and a lot of fun stuff. The first game did not go so well, but in true kind of Cavs Summer League form, they are going from one game to the next, getting a little bit better. I thought from a continuity
One
and
could
just
argue a lot better.
Dramatically, blowout loss to blowout win is quite the swing. But it just felt like the whole team looked a whole lot better in the second game. But, Summer League in general is the time where I don't really look at even the score of the game. And I'm just trying to analyze, play by play, what's going on with the guys. So,
yeah, well, I said this on Max Pod as well. I will say that first game, the score doesn't matter in Summer League, but there is a competitiveness Mendoza line that must be crossed. You have to be above it. And I think, that first half, it was hard to really glean much of anything because it was such a disorganized effort from the boys. So seeing them respond, I know, again, the final score really doesn't matter that much for the long-term future of any of these prospects, but it is still nice to see them go, hey, we played sloppy, disorganized basketball in game one. Let's clean it up and do that to another team.
Yeah, and the less fun flip side of that is, it probably was the same case against the Bucks where, the score just got so out of hand that it probably looks a little easier. I'd like to see, a close competitive game where both teams are kind of locked in at some point over Summer League. We don't know how long, the various Cavs prospects are going to be playing in the Summer League. But I'd like to see these guys continue to get run. None of them really figure to be major contributors in the rotation next year. So we got, 2-3 months until the season kicks off. So let's make the most of it. Let's see what these guys can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, where do you want to start, brother? Do we want to start with the off-season, a little bit of the off-season news, Darius Garland shooting down the trade rumor per Chris Fedor that, hey, it's hey, I don't want to be traded. And frankly, I'm glad to hear it, even though that was my assumption in the first place.
Yeah, and that reporting had kind of been out there in the recent weeks too. I know Brian Windhorst was talking about that as well.
Not so on the record though, and it was nice to hear him say emphatically, I don't want to be traded.
Yeah, man, and it's a nice reminder, and situations like this always make me kind of do some self-reflection. And, I think it's inevitable that when you worry about a player's, future with the team, you start to do some emotional distancing. I was certainly guilty of that earlier in the season where, the Cavs got off to a slow start and it didn't look like Donovan was playing as well as we really expected him to. And I was like, as much as I try to not let that stuff impact the analysis, it like dampens my enthusiasm rooting for a player. And, I think sometimes we get so caught up in the rumor mill of what's going on around the NBA and whatnot that we start almost bracing for news and adjusting our feelings on players. And, if I was able to do that on the podcast and as a fan for LeBron James, I can do that for just about anybody. Because I think you know for sure that was your hell. That was your battle going through that 17-18 season where I was emotionally distancing myself from LeBron. If I can do that with him, I can do that with just about anybody. But I think this is just yet another reminder of not to, lose hair and go gray as I am over stuff that hasn't yet occurred, or
it's just not worth it, dude.
Rumored to maybe happen that, is usually coming from third and fourth hand sources and not from the people themselves.
Yeah. And there's always a game of telephone that's happening. But like I always say, it's just most important to say, like, if like, and no matter what side of the aisle you're on, like I really have found myself going like, I'll speculate about future stuff. I'll discuss like, factuals and counterfactuals, but like, I'm just not going to get worked up in either direction until they do something I either like or don't like, because and that's the front office. That's what, how whether it be the players, what coach they hire, because it's like, and I feel like it's funny because I feel like, 2-3 years ago, I was the one that was more likely to spiral. And you were more, you kept me even. And I feel like it's been my role to like slap you when you start getting too into these like hypotheticals where I'm like, yeah, it'll be interesting. And like, yeah, there are moves that, you hear rumored, whether they're trades, signings, etc., that you go, I wouldn't like that if they did that. But like, I am at the point now where I'm like, it's just not worth my mental health to be like, oh, well, if Darius does ask out, then they'll do this, and this. And it's like, well, he hasn't asked out. There was some reporting in either direction, and I'll just wait to hear what he has to say on the matter. And he weighed in, and that doesn't mean this is a weird league where things happen.
Everything's fluid. Yep.
Where things happen that go in the direct contrast to what people say. Like, I'm not saying that there's any certainty here, but that's all the more reason just to kind of evaluate what's in front of you. At least emotionally, at an emotional level. I don't mind going down the rabbit hole on some thought experiments, but like emotionally, I'm only going to get worked up about what's in front of these two eyes.
It's probably a good idea. I think one of my favorite sayings is, depression is anxiety when looking backwards, and anxiety is depression looking forwards.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that one.
And, I think just like we're getting used to, a Cavs team that isn't either a lottery team or,
a no doubt finals attendee.
We're also getting used to, stars that aren't LeBron James or Kyrie Irving, like we had a very kind of unique build with that contender. And like when LeBron is putting stuff out there, it's very clearly coming from him, where like that doesn't seem to be, the MO of the guys on this roster, right? Like even when people were speculating, I talked about, that kind of inevitable emotional distancing that I did at the start of the year to protect myself. You had people on national podcasts going, Donovan, worst kept secret in the league. He wants out. He's going to force his way out by the trade deadline. Tim Bontemps saying there's a 0% chance that he's going to sign. And like Donovan, none of that's coming from Donovan. It clearly didn't reflect how he is feeling. But because, they're a hot topic, you're going to have people 2-3 degrees of separation away that are going to speculate. And then the game of telephone occurs.
Yeah, and it's not always nasty either. Like sometimes you will hear people say with confidence, probably near Donovan, like, yeah, he's probably out. But it's like, if you don't hear it from him, then you just can't really trust it. It has to be pretty dang well sourced by real reporters, not by pundits, when this stuff is happening. Like, it's not like I ignore reporting. Like, I am going to take it in, but like, the line between reporter and pundit is increasingly blurry in the sports landscape. And like, And I do think that makes it harder to consume this stuff in a way that's like emotionally balanced.
Yeah,
as a fan.
Yeah, especially when people do wear multiple hats, right? Like, as you said, I think the line gets blurred there. And, you know, the other thing to kind of take note of is the people in the locker room. Like, when you hear the beat guys and stuff talk, they're like, this is, like, they said all season, Donovan is not acting like a player that wants out. He is someone that is completely engaged. You never hear anything about him and Garland having a rift or anything like that, right? Like, this is a group that really believes in one another. And I think, you know, whether it's the Mitchell extension, whether it's Garland talking now, like, it's kind of, again, a reflection of, hey, like, we understand what we went through in this locker room better than anybody else, right? Like, they understand what Garland went through physically and off court with the family issues and things like that. They understand, you know, Mitchell playing hurt at the start and end of the year and everything that Allen went through and all that. Like, they understand the context of the season, and, you know, it can be frustrating in the moment. And you know, when you're giving your all and, you know, you're playing through an injury and something's not clicking, I can understand that. But, you know, nobody knows the people in the locker room better than the people in the locker room. And I think taking anything you hear with some grain of salt is very important.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Either way, I'm just hoping that, that the Cavs continue to make good choices. Darius, Donovan, all the Cavs players continue to make logical, rational choices, and it looks like everyone kind of is acting rationally this offseason. You know, like, you really haven't seen any weird, wild swings out of this organization.
It's true.
And like, that wasn't always there have been years where you go, what are we doing? You know, and like, and sometimes that's good and sometimes bad, but like, overall, I am for someone who is, you know, paid to talk about the team and thus is pretty invested in having stuff happen to talk about, you know, as a fan, I like stuff. Transactions are fun. Like, I actually am finding myself liking this offseason more and more the more I sit in it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, you know, as we wait to see what opportunities kind of manifest on the trade market and what the Cavs kind of get involved in, because that is still very much on the horizon, and the offseason is still very young. Talked about on the last podcast how, you know, the Larry Markkinen trade and the Donovan Mitchell trade happened at the end of August / beginning of September. Like, these things do take time in the offseason. But, you know, we do know that this team does have a good starting group and they do have depth. And when we're looking at, okay, well, what kind of moves in the margins can they make? Summer League is a great example of, you know, where that talent may be potentially coming to the main roster down the pipeline, right? And I think starting with this group and trying to, you know, understand how much weight to give to Summer League production is probably the next step here. And I just want to say, kind of off the top, when we talk about this group, the ones that I'm like most interested in keeping an eye on are obviously Jaylen Tyson, Emoni Bates, Craig Porter Jr., Luke Travers, as well as Pete Nance, just because all of them are, you know, kind of projected to potentially be on the roster or a two-way or a main contract. But of that group, the one that I am least interested in is Craig Porter Jr., because I have seen that guy play NBA minutes. I know that his game translates. I know that he is still recovering from an ankle injury. I think he described himself as 85% back. So I have so little interest in his production, because there's just times out there where it's like, okay, yeah, you're a pro. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will say, real quick to hit on Craig, in a weird way, I liked his first game more than his second game, even though he played much better in his second game. Because in his first game, he went out and shot like 4 off the dribble threes. You know, he said during camp in Cleveland before they went to Vegas that off the dribble threes are a big part of his development curve, that he needs, you know, his next big hurdle to clear. And like, the reality is, when you have he's the only one on this Cavs Summer League team. Actually, I'm sorry, Jaylen Tyson is too. But you know, especially given his spot within the team, he has the most job security by a country mile on the Summer League squad. And when you're someone with job security, you don't need to go out and play the most polished game for me to be happy with your effort. What I want to see you do is try stuff, work on the things that you're working on at home. And like, so I actually really liked that he took those 4 threes, even though he didn't make any of them. Had a couple ugly misses in there. Like, I think to me, that's doing your job in Summer League. Now, there is a balance to be struck there. You can't be selfish because, like, he is the veteran point guard that has to, which is funny to say because he's a second-year guy, but he now is the veteran point guard that does have to help organize things to get everyone else their reps. So it's like there is a balance, but I really didn't mind him taking the shots, even though none of them went in game one.
Yeah, and it's always tricky when you're dealing with a lower body injury. I think we saw that, consistently with the Cavs main roster throughout last season, right? Whether it be, ankle, hamstring, stuff like that, just shooting from NBA range when you're playing through some soreness is going to make things a little bit more difficult. But I think you're right? Like it's a time where you want to see some experimentation, but this isn't a roster that has a veteran point guard like Sharif Cooper, where, Craig can kind of explore the space coming in off the bench. Like you really do need him to kind of be that facilitator. And I thought he did a really good job of that in game two. And I thought they did a balanced playmaking job in general in game two, right? Like Emoni Bates, I loved his shot profile in game two. I didn't love it in game one. Like I thought he was pressing just a little bit too much, which can happen when you're down.
They had 33 assists.
Pardon me?
They had 33 assists in game two. That's crazy for a Summer League game.
The across the board playmaking was really, really good. So, a little hat tip to Jordan Ott, coaching this group and getting everybody on the same page, because I thought, whether it was Emoni, whether it was Craig, whether it was Tyson, Travers, like everybody, the ball was moving very, very well, and they were playing with a lot more structure. So certainly excited to see if that continues. But before we, dive into more kind of analysis of these individual guys, I think it's always kind of important to put a qualifier on Summer League, because sometimes I think people will look at it and say, okay, well, what did you work on this offseason? When in reality, Summer League is like the beginning of the summer for a lot of these guys, right? Like, or at the very least, it's a midway point, like 40% along the way. It's just a check-in to see where they're at. A lot of these guys are playing their first time competitively, since college, the college season wrapped up, or, late March as the NBA season wraps up, or April. So it's been a while since they've played in this setting, playing with guys that they haven't really played with before. And it's just kind of that check-in point before, the last 2-3 months here of the off season where, maybe they're testing out their legs to see something that they've been working on a little bit, and then they're going to work further with the trainers as the summer progresses.
Yeah, I mean, it is a long, long summer ahead of us. Thank goodness for the Olympics, man, to get us through, because normally you have that, like, oh, basketball's not really gone, Summer League's here, and then boom, nothingness for months. So it'll be very, very nice to have the Olympics to help bridge that gap.
Yeah, it definitely will be. I'm obviously looking forward to rooting against you. The friendly did not go so well
I know,
for Team Canada.
It's all right.
But when you're rooting for second place, I can justify it in my mind.
You can root for gold. Come on, it's a single elimination tournament by the end.
Yeah,
don't be a coward.
I'm hedging on the record,
don't
but
be
off the record, you're going down, buddy.
All right, brother.
But I do want to, we've talked about Craig. I want to lead with Jaylen Tyson, because obviously as a first round pick, he's the only first round pick out of this group. And he's someone that you and I are both relatively high on. And, I think it's important to remember this is a guy that is older than Emoni Bates. And, you kind of hope with having a physically developed body that this would be a setting where he, kind of stands out as someone that looks like a pro. And man, let me tell you, Jaylen Tyson looks like a pro already. The physicality really stands out. Like, he has a man's body out there. Just the basketball IQ and his understanding of where to go. Not explosive in terms of his quickness getting by guys, but he really does leverage his strength well to get to his spots. And the thing I like about his athleticism that at least kind of stands out through 2 games is the lateral movement defensively appears to be there. Like, I don't feel like he's getting lost trying to stay in front of guys. That anticipation's well, he's moving well laterally. And, leaping off of 2 feet, he's able to get up, right? Like, he's able to dunk, he's able to, block shots. And I think that's really important, because I think sometimes we just talk about athleticism like it's a single trait when really it comes in a lot of different shades.
I have a general thing I've just kind of got my eye out on for Tyson, and it's that, and I noticed this in college too, in the tape that I watched in the aftermath of the pick, which is that he's not crazy quick-footed, nor is he crazy explosive athletically, but he gets a decent amount of blocks and steals. And I think he's one of these guys who, and his wingspan is not exceptional. You know, it's not bad, but it's not exceptional. And I think he's one of these guys who has these kind of wider frames, kind of he's kind of like coiled like a snake, you know? And like he gets a lot of blocks and steals where the opposing player goes, wait, you got to that? You know, like you can almost tell they're like almost thrown off by the fact that he was able to get that deflection or that block. And like that, you know, that three that he blocked against Orlando was like, out of nowhere, like the guy was like, wait, what? You're here? And it's not like he exploded onto the scene. It's almost like there are certain players who just are optical illusions for some reason and get that kind of stuff. Like, Derek White's a guy who doesn't have an insane wingspan, you know?
You're right.
Yep. And it's just, it has good timing, good hands, and like for whatever reason,
like you.
Yeah, for whatever reason, lulls guys into that sense of security. So that's a trend I'm going to be watching for the rest of Summer League and at the next level. It's been really fun having a guy who really cares about rebounding, Justin. He has 8 offensive rebounds through 2 games, and really could have had quite a few more against Orlando. He had a lot of tip outs where the team was just so disconnected that he would knock the ball out and it would bounce 3 times before the Magic would pick it up.
In the structure of a normal offense, those are probably going to get recovered by the Cavs. Yeah,
so like I'm really enjoying watching his physicality on the boards. I think he's really got a nastiness. He kind of gets inside guys, and he's just strong. He's just big and strong. And like one of the reasons I like the pick is that level of physicality, is the fact that instead of being the guy who gets dug out on the dunker spot, he's the guy who can kind of get in under guys with a low center of gravity and bump them a couple times and and extend plays. And they just really haven't had a lot of rebounding on the wing, really, in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and even though he doesn't have the wingspan of some of these guys, I know I've mentioned this before, but like he is taller than a Mikal Bridges. He is taller than a Devin Vassell or a Keldon Johnson, right? And he's got that strength, and the knack for rebounding really stands out to me, because that's something we've talked about with Okoro a ton, right? Like what a difference it would make if Isaac was out there consistently filling the box score with kind of those hustle stats and things like that. And he's capable of doing it at times, but it's just different when you can tell someone has a natural knack for that. And like his ability to, he was playing some power forward. I feel pretty good about his ability. Like he looks bigger than his size, right? Like, which goes back to your optical illusion point. Like I feel good about him guarding, 2 through 4. Like he's bigger than a Caleb Martin, who exclusively played power forward pretty much for a finals team in the Heat, right? Like I really do think that there is an opportunity, and that versatility is going to be really important. But I found this interesting because when we're trying to figure out how much weight to give Summer League production, there was a study that was done by Owen Phillips on his Substack, and he wanted to find the things that translate the most from Summer League per 36 to the regular season. And this, I think the study started in 2010 up until 2022. And it's basically anyone that played at least 50 minutes in Summer League and 250 minutes in the NBA. So a very large sample size. The things that translated the most from Summer League in order are 3-point attempts, assists, blocks, offensive rebounds, and field goal attempts. The things that translated the least in Summer League: free throw percentage, which is a sample size thing, 3-point percentage, steals, free throw attempted, and field goal percentage.
I'm not surprised to see the percentages all don't really matter, because the sample's just so small.
Right, which makes a lot of sense. I did find that steals not translating is interesting.
I think that one is explicable, though, just from the perspective of you have a lot of guys who are just not NBA level ball handlers out there, and they're not running offenses they know very well. So I think in Summer League,
and also
there are
a sample size thing too, right?
There are a lot of the guy just threw the ball to me steals to be had, where it's like you didn't have any preternatural timing that you were like, oh, I know he's going to put it here and I'm going to jump the gun. It's like, oh, he just didn't know you were going to be there and he misread the offense because he learned it 3 days ago. Like, but like the things that translate, those all make sense to me too. You know, assists, blocks, offensive rebounds. Offensive rebound feels like the most universal thing. You're either good at it or you're not, right?
Which is why it's exciting when you look at Jaylen Tyson per 36, 6.3 offensive rebounds per game, Carter. That's insane. Like that's really kind of noteworthy. And he has been assertive. He's taking, 20 and a half shots per 36. That's great to see. 6.3 3-point attempts.
Justin, do we have a Josh Hart at home?
We might have a Josh Hart. We got a bigger Josh Hart at home. He's got 3 inches on him, Carter. I'm happy about it. But, the 3-point attempt, great. Like, I looked at how it would compare per 36 to the Cavs players that we had last season. It would be 8th between Dean and Karras. Like, that feels like, I don't think he's ever going to be a high-volume 3-point shooter, but that's a good range for him to be in, especially if he is, an eventual successor to that Karis LeVert role in some ways. 4.7 assists. That'd be 6 on the team, right between Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus. I like that. Like,
what have you thought about the playmaking so far? I asked Mac this question as well.
I think there's been a few sloppy plays where he's been trying to do too much, or times where, he made the right read a second too late. There was one possession that really stood out to me in the Milwaukee game where he got the defensive rebound. He took it into the basket and flung it out to the perimeter, to the 45. Extra pass was made and they hit the 3 at the top of the arc. I thought, like, that's the type of read that basically, like, only Donovan makes. Like Darius sometimes does that, the kick out, but the ability to get his body on the defender, get to the rim, get to his spot, stay under control and throw that pass. That's the type of stuff that I like to see. I like seeing those flashes more than I care about, oh, he made a few mistakes. Like, I want guys to make mistakes in this environment. I don't want them playing scared basketball. And I feel like he hasn't been doing that.
Yeah, I will say I was wondering, you think about all the ranges of outcomes going into the summer league for your first round pick, and I was wondering if he might really blow me away as a playmaker, just because he got so many reps at Cal getting to do that. He hasn't done that. I mean, he's got 6 assists to 7 turnovers so far in summer league. Haven't really seen any of those high level reads that I saw little glimpses of in Cal, where he's like running pick and roll and looking off the corner man so he can hit a guy for a wide open dunk. Like, I haven't really seen any of that, but like, I think he's been satisfactory as a playmaker. The handle, I think, could get a little tighter. You're not going to be able to have a loose handle against the Anthony Black level athletes of the world. But would you
describe it like Okoro level? Like, because we like Okoro.
I think he's been better. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm comparing summer leagues. I think current Okoro, I don't know. It's just so different. Okoro just didn't get any of these reps last year, really. He's become such a generally off-ball guy, whereas Tyson is getting reps literally running the second unit at point guard at times. When gosh, I forget his name. Hunter Couture is out there with Tyson. Tyson is playing the 1 on offense and Couture is playing the 2, even though
the reason I ask is because I feel like when Okoro does create an advantage, he makes really nice reads, but he doesn't consistently put himself in those spots. Like, he's not consistently attacking kind of the closeouts and creating that advantage, whereas Tyson, like, I feel like the reads are kind of at the same level, but he creates advantage at a higher rate, and he's staying on balance a little bit more in those situations, which is the thing that really impresses me. Like, the body control. I replied to your tweet with a Luke Travers pass where Luke threw a beautiful pass, but it was just a little bit low, and Tyson gathered it with his right, brought it back over to his left, and the footwork was so sound that he was able to finish that.
That's a layup a lot of guys smoke.
Exactly. He made it look routine, and that is very, very difficult to go low, retrieve it with your right, bring it back to the left, and finish with the reverse. Like that kind of touch and that kind of feel, and like just consistently how good his footwork is and how infrequently he's off balance. That's the type of stuff to me that I'm really looking for in this environment.
Yeah, I think that body control point is a very, very good one. And it also allows him to rise up with touch even in unideal circumstances. Like, to go back to the Okoro comp, like, when Okoro has a clean angle to the rim, I'm pretty confident he's going to finish. But when he gets bumped and he's kind of leaning back, that's where it's like, he's just so tightly coiled, that it's like he doesn't feel loose enough to kind of be under control and finish strong in those spots as well. Whereas I feel like Tyson has hit 2 or 3 floaters so far where he gets an offensive board and is falling backwards and is floating it up and is still able to finish with a degree of control, and I think that kind of speaks to his balance and his ability to control his body even when it's not under kind of optimal circumstances. So I've been very, very impressed. I wouldn't say I've been blown away, but like, he certainly hasn't been a guy where you go, oh man, are we sure about this pick? Like I've seen all the things I want to see.
He looks like an NBA player for sure.
Yeah. And like, I think the 3-point shot is going to be interesting. Again, I said it after they drafted him. I don't think it's like the prettiest 3-point form in the world. No. And that does, prejudice me a little bit against him as a shooter, but like he has taken them quickly. He's got a high enough release that even hard closeouts aren't a huge problem. So like
that one he had to start the game against Milwaukee was,
they were flying at him.
It was a very good closeout, and he cashed that, and he, more importantly, he took that, right? Like I was really, really happy that he took that shot and shot it with confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, having a good time with the Jaylen Tyson experience, and I feel like he's a guy who I've liked more the better the talent is on the floor, and that's a nice thing because if he plays for the big league team at all next year, it'll be with better players.
There's going to be a good amount of talent on the floor with him. Want to make a too early prediction? Do you think that he's going to see some time in the rotation next season?
I do, and here's why. I think it's just going to be a numbers game because Kenny Atkinson has said he likes to run a deep rotation, 9-10 guys. If you got 10 guys out there, let's say it's the starters, let's assume Okoro is back, because I still think that is the most likely outcome, at least for now. You have Okoro, you have Karras, you have Wade, you have Niang. There's your 6 through 9 in the rotation. Then you're going to have either Jerome or CPJ, who I think are going to battle for that backup point guard, those backup 1 minutes. And then it's Merrill, one of those 2 guards, Tyson, and whoever their backup point guard or backup big that they sign is. And like when you in those 4 swing spots, I can see a case depending on who is hurt or unavailable on a given day, who gets in foul trouble, who's sick, whatever it is, that any one of those 4 can be brought in. Like, oh, Karras is out. We need some, big playmaking wing help. Or Okoro's out. We need Tyson to come in and be someone who, guards with some physicality. Oh, Donovan's out. We want more shooting. We're going to play Sam. Or whoever it may be.
Honestly, Dean's out. We don't want to wear down Max too much playing small ball 4. So we're going to play Tyson there because he's going to bring physicality and rebound it and do those kind of things.
Yeah, I just think if you're running 10 deep and if you're committed to running 10 deep, like everyone's just going to get a shot to play, at some point or another. Whether he earns a perpetual spot in the rotation, I'm pretty bearish on that. I'm not. I think. If you had to make me guess right this second, I'd say no, just because there's guys in front of him that are good at stuff, and that are older and more tenured. But no, I think it's absolutely possible but I wouldn't say like it's way more likely that he doesn't get into the rotation this year than he does. I just think it's if you had to make me pick one or the other, I'd say no.
I think just with his style of play and, the physical maturity, I don't think he's going to be in the rotation to start the season, but I wouldn't be surprised after, a couple months and there's been some injuries and he's gotten his opportunities through there that he just kind of gets a spot in the rotation and doesn't let go of it. Especially like we always think, oh, they got to get minutes to develop, but he's going to be practicing with these guys all the time. And, just everything you hear about him just being, someone that gives that kind of work effort and he understands the game at a high level. I really see him kind of gaining that opportunity. And, if they don't make a move this offseason, maybe him playing well and stepping up during injuries allows them to make kind of a smaller consolidation move by the deadline because, hey, we have a level of confidence that he's going to be able to step in and contribute. So therefore, we can turn two of our kind of depth guys into someone that addresses a need at a different spot in the rotation and it opens up some minutes. Like they really do kind of have good depth and they do have the kind of support that you want, the kind of support that we get from Zoom. Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. Carter, after Jaylen Tyson, I think we've talked about the two guys most likely to see regular season minutes.
Give me.
Oh, what?
Give me.
What?
Give me. Tee me up, brother.
I want to ask you. We know Craig's going to get some regular season minutes. We know Tyson's going to get some regular season minutes. The next name on the list that we need to discuss, who do you think is most ready to contribute for the Cleveland Cavaliers next season if called upon?
Brother, it's Luke Travers. I love Luke. And I do think it's an interesting question that, we should ask because, I think it's absolutely possible that the Cavs have three two-way spots open right now. And I want to say 2 roster spots open right now. If you count Okoro as the 13th man.
Yep.
And I guess I'm actually, before we talk about all the things I love about Luke Travers, I would ask you this. If you were going to sign Emoni Bates or Luke Travers to fill one of those open main roster spots, who would you pick? And you can pick neither. That would be okay too.
Well, the remaining free agent crop probably does make it a little easier to say one of them. But I'd probably say Luke Travers. The thing, I just think Emoni still needs a little bit of time. I'm really impressed. Like, he looks noticeably bigger physically. Like, you can tell he's been putting the work in. And, like, it's one thing to work on your game and your shot, but, like, the level of dedication it takes to add that much weight over a year and have it be, lean, functional muscle, like, that's really, really impressive. And I think, that's the type of work ethic that's going to eventually get him rewarded with an NBA contract. Tricky thing is, like, you need shooting, and Emoni brings that more. And Luke, I really don't have a lot of confidence in his three-point shot at all, but every other thing he brings to the table just feels like it's at an NBA level. Like, the athleticism seems to be there, the defense seems to be there, he rebounds, he assists, he's such a smart cutter. And, if this was last year's offense and, like we're going into it with last year's mentality, then I think almost Emoni might be the better fit where, okay, stand in the corner. We're going to get you some shots, provide some spacing. But if we're going to be running a Kenny Atkinson offense where there's, equal opportunity, not as much dribbling, a lot of playmaking at different positions that you can leverage and really taking advantage of cutters, like someone like Luke Travers can thrive in that environment, similar to Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, how he did in Brooklyn as a non-shooter.
Wow. Good pull. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, Nets legend. I think you're right. And at this point, man, I'm in watching a guy like Travers who, like, dude, it's so hard to pop as a player in Summer League if you're not a dribbler and scorer, or you're one of these omega defensive anchor big men who are just swatting shots left and right. It's so hard to pop. And every time he's on the floor, the Cavs play better.
Yeah.
And it's he just understands the game so well. I think he is a plus athlete. He has some vertical pop and coordination. He's big, and he both sees passes and makes passes, which is, I always say passing is a 2-tier skill. We mash into one. He's good at both of those skills, and maybe elite at seeing them. In terms of
it's really high level.
You know how hard it is to know where your teammates are on the floor in a summer league game? like he really just has that preternatural feel. And I'm at the point, Justin, where I'm like, someone tell me what I'm missing that makes him not an NBA player right now. I just feel like I see so many guys in the league that are older, that help their team much less, that don't have such an outlandishly better skill set that that it's just so clear that they should be there and he shouldn't. So like, I don't really know what I'm missing, because with size like that, I'm okay with an up and down jump shot. And because there are so many glue guys in the league, and I said this on MaxPod as well, but there are a lot of glue guys in this league that they're Milford men. They're neither seen nor heard. That's their appeal, is that you put them out there, they're not going to mess up. They'll hit open threes, and it's fine. You know, it's fine for everyone. No one cares. But what a guy like Luke does is he's a glue guy in the sense that he's in this perpetual motion where he makes cuts that open up shots for other guys. He leaks out in transition at the right time every time without compromising the other end of the floor. He draws fouls. When he does dribble and he runs out of space, he makes the pocket pass to DJ Burns that lets him draw a foul. Like, I just see winning play after winning play after winning play, and the Cavs have so much high-end talent on their roster that, like, I just can't imagine this guy does not help them if he is called upon in some spot minutes. And I just think he's an NBA player. I don't know, man. I think
physically he absolutely is an NBA player.
I'll say this. I feel like anxious about how sure I am that he's an NBA player, because like it doesn't seem like the NBA community is like as sure as I am. And like normally when I'm that far off from like when I'm this sure about something that everyone else seems to be this not sure about, I'm like, what am I missing? Because I really just love watching this guy play. I've loved it for 3 years now, and like I just want to see this guy get a shot.
Yeah, I think the last time, one of us felt this sure about a player, the other one was comparing him to DJ Augustine. The other thing, like with Luke, is like I think basically it comes down to shooting. Like if he had, the knockdown jump shot, I think you could say, all right, like 100%
knockdown jump shot,
guy.
he's a starter.
Right. Like he'd be awesome. But I think, Rondé Hollis Jefferson was one name, but even if you look at that Warriors championship team that they had, there was a lot of guys playing significant minutes that weren't knockdown shooters, but what they brought to the table was playmaking, right? Like they move well. They were intelligent players that played within the system. And I think that goes back to what we've talked about with Evan Mobley of what's more important than the handle or the 3-point shot. Like if you are able to playmake, if you're able to put the ball on the floor, that comes with a gravity in itself. And spacing isn't just, hey, let's play heliocentric 4-out, 1-ball handler. Like, that's not what spacing is. It's, the threat to do multiple things and keep the defense honest. And you look at that Warriors team, obviously Draymond Green, top of the list of guys that not a 3-point threat, but the playmaking creates gravity. Shot 29% that year. Damian Lee, not a 3-point shooter, played heavy minutes for them. Andre Iguodala, not a 3-point shooter, played heavy minutes for them. Gary Payton, Jonathan Kuminga, like all of these guys played significant minutes for that championship Warriors team that had great spacing but weren't great 3-point shooters. And when I look at this Cavs roster, they have guys that I'm confident that can shoot threes, right? Like we set a franchise record for 3-point makes last year, and quite a few guys didn't have as great of a year shooting from three. Right? Darius with the various injuries, Donovan with his various injuries, his 3-point percentage fell off. Karras, like Max was at. Yeah, but George, like Max was, at the career rate, but he was shooting was so much better in those games with Darius playing, just because he had a point guard to set him up. Like there's as is, I think that there's good 3-point shooting and spacing, and with the proper offensive structure, it can highlight that skill set even more. And when it comes to someone like Luke Travers as well, how he fits with the existing rotation isn't as important, because we're talking about, is Jaylen Tyson going to get regular season minutes in the rotation? He'd get it before Travers. Like, Travers would be so far down the list, but just having him in the environment, I think, would be beneficial, whether that's on a two-way, whether that's on an NBA deal. It would be really nice to have him in that mix, because he is someone that brings so much to the table. He's someone that sees the game at such a high level that I just can't help but feel like he would benefit from being around that NBA system. So,
if I were in Luke Travers' camp, if I were, an agent, a family friend, whatever it may be, like, what I would say is, like, if the Cavs offer a two-way, I would absolutely jump at that, because the reality is,
track record.
Yeah, this team's track record is to convert their two-way guys that perform well for them. They inevitably call upon the ones that earn it. Dean Wade, Lamar Stevens, Craig Porter Jr. And when those guys show out and
Sam
help,
Merrill.
Sam, I do not think was ever on a two-way. I think he was just on the G League team, because
you're right. You're right. That's correct.
But like, these guys got into the Cavs system, earned their way onto the team, and this has been a pretty meritocracy team at the bottom of the roster. Like, if you want to earn your way onto the main roster, here is your road to doing so. And like, if I'm right about Luke and Luke is right about Luke that he's an NBA player, I think even on a two-way, he will very quickly show that he belongs.
But honestly, like, I think the fact that Sam Merrill wasn't on a two-way actually strengthens your point to some extent, because it's not, hey, these are the guys that we're invested in. If you display an opportunity within the organization, whether you're a two-way player or not, like, if you display a skill set that we believe can translate to the NBA, we are going to reward you with that opportunity. I think that's a really important message to send players. Like, maybe, that might be the thing, that there might not be a two-way spot for someone like DJ Burns, but that might be an incentive for playing with the Charge next season. Hey, like, we might promote someone that's on a two-way contract and open up an opportunity, or like, you might find your way into some regular season minutes. You never know what a season can bring. So I think that track record of the Cavs' ability to find diamonds in the rough, to develop that talent, I think that does make things attractive, and I think that's a very salient point when it comes to Travers.
God, I love Luke Travers. He's such a cool player. Just you find players who speak your basketball language, who play the game the way you value it, and it's like, it's just fun. It's fun to root for those guys. Like, and like, every now and again, those guys just kind of fall into your lap, and like, and I will admit, a big part of this is a bit of a Coke or Pepsi kind of taste thing, where it's like, I just like the way that guy plays, and I want that kind of play to be rewarded. So like, I understand I'm biased a little bit here, but like, again, I would love for someone to talk me out of it. I would love someone to explain to me what I'm missing, because I'm not like, I don't want to stick my head in the sand and just be like, this is what I think, so it's fine. But yeah, really, really cool player, and really enjoying. And no surprise, Justin, he misses game one, we get blown out. Goes into game two, we blow the doors off him, baby.
Look at you becoming the disciple of the on-off stats.
You know me. Summer League plus minus king over here.
Speaking of basketball love language, Emoni Bates is taking 13.4 threes per 36. There's your basketball love language, and then there's mine. Yeah.
Two sides of the same coin, my friend.
I love a gunner. I love a hooper, and Emoni Bates, like, the physical transformation.
Your love language is that boy nice.
That boy nice as hell. And I love the willingness to take those shots. I still think the best road for him is to be a catch and shoot 3-point shooter. The kind of sidestep wing threes that he takes, stuff like that. I just don't think you're going to. That's as needed.
You're not going to allow him to take those shots if he's playing real competitive minutes in the NBA right now.
Right. Like, I think he's going to take those shots if you give him minutes in the NBA. And what your ability to allow that to happen is basically, am I playing him or not? Which, I do love that mentality. But, it's important to keep in mind that he is someone that's younger than Tyson, right? Like, this is still, a development
it's
project.
funny. I hadn't considered that till you brought it up on this here podcast.
Yeah, like he was crazy young going into that draft. I think,
which is weird because he was a 2-year college player because he was one of the guys who reclassified in high school.
It's absolutely wild. I think he's actually 2 years younger than Jaylen Tyson, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, the physical transformation to me is the biggest thing. Like, that's such a difficult thing. And now that he's, the same weight as like a Brandon Ingram, like that's meaningful, right? And I liked his second game a whole lot more than the first because I thought there was less of kind of those, sidestep, let me create something threes and, the playmaking. Like, he actually made some really kind of nice reads out there and was displaying some of that feel, not blowing me away on the defensive end, but not standing out as much as he did last year, which is one of those kind of signs of growth. You would like to see him get a little bit more stocks. He's got no steals or blocks through 2 games. But I thought, positionally, he's doing pretty well. And, with the length that he has, like he can be bothersome at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely feel like I've seen the extra weight on defense a little more than offense thus far. Like,
agreed.
I mean, a stiff wind could knock him over last year. And that's just, he was uncommonly thin for for a professional basketball player. And like now he's normal thin, and that matters a lot. I haven't really seen him use that much on the offensive end. Like he still can get bumped off his spots a little bit, just like Brandon Ingram can. He's still skinny, but like the difference between a shoulder bump on a normal straight line drive knocking you into the third row versus just knocking you back a foot or two is pretty immense, because like as long as he's not getting knocked into the third row, that's where your length can be a factor. His frame was so limited last year that he couldn't use his wingspan in height to his advantage. It wasn't even part of the play if he got attacked in isolation at the NBA level. So I'll be interested to see that. I liked your point about the playmaking. Even in the Magic game, he made a couple really nice reads. Like, listen, if the guy is running a set and like has a little bit of structure around him and is just chooses to play with his head up, he makes some nice reads. He made a couple like high level passes against the Bucks. And ran a nice...
It's not just finding like an open dump off or anything like that. Like it actually is, hey, I'm going to pass this guy open and create a good shot opportunity for them.
Yeah, he made some really, really nice looks there. So, like, I would encourage him to continue to do so, Like, make sure it's like, hey, man, just literally keep your head up. Don't get into ISO one-on-one game until it is a last resort, until there's 3-4 seconds on the shot clock. Because we trust that you can get that shot off with 12 seconds on the shot clock or 2. And we don't really think your shot percentage is going to go that far down later in the shot clock compared to where you are at 12. So, like, I think ultimately the playmaking has impressed me in spurts. And also, I would say this, he's just not making any threes. I don't think his threes have been terribly harder than they were last year. And that's where you calling out that 3-point percentage is like the least important, one of the least translatable things. It's just a small sample. And like, if he was 8 of 16 instead of 4 of 16, I think we're probably talking a little bit differently about him so far this summer league, where we go, oh man, this guy's made some nice passes and he's still shooting the lights out of the ball. He's just not that far off from doing that. So, I overall, I don't think he has changed my long-term mind about him. Like, I think that would be like his best case scenario where he comes into summer league in year 2 and is like, I'm a no doubt rosterable player.
Yeah,
I don't think he's done that, but I certainly have seen the nice little spurts that I want to see, and I also trust that the shot will be there.
Yeah, the season he had in the G League, I think, is a lot more telling. Like he took and made more threes than he did in his 2 years in college. Like I have no doubt in my mind that Emoni Bates is a good shooter, and For those that aren't familiar, like kind of the accepted kind of, benchmark of 3-point shots normalizing is 700 attempts. Like it's a lot of attempts. Like guys will have kind of weird outlier seasons. As an example, Isaac Okoro in his 280 career games has taken 757 threes, right? So like, and we saw that even in the postseason, right? Like if you made 2 or 3 more threes, all of a sudden it's a great percentage, but that's not really going to tell you anything one way or another. That's why, 3-point attempts being the thing that translates the most out of Summer League. Like, we know that Emoni Bates is a high volume 3-point shooter. We know that he's someone that can get his shot off in a variety of situations. And, to me, what I've seen from him is just an indicator of what we heard when we talked to Mike Garrity a few months ago, which is it's a guy that works his ass off, right? Like he is putting the work in. You see that development physically. It's just, another reminder why the Cavs are invested in him as kind of a long-term project, because you get someone with that kind of length that can shoot the cover off a ball and has some playmaking feel. If you get the other stuff to a certain point, all of a sudden, like, you can get those NBA skill sets onto the court, and from there you're laughing, right? Like that's one of the toughest archetypes to find. And he's like, the fact that he's still 20, man, like he's younger than so many guys in this year's draft. And it's just nice to see that.
Yeah, we were a hilariously old Summer League team last year, and now we're actually pretty young.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Can I just say, as a little aside, I loved, we lean on, like as basketball media, we lean on cliches so damn frequently. I love that in the broadcast against the Bucks, Matt Weiner goes, the Cavs are showing some of that championship resolve from last year's Summer League. And then he caught himself and was like, although almost none of the same players are returning.
Yeah,
we just...
Don't worry about it, Matt.
We go off of our experience and we work our way backwards, and it's something that I just really enjoy, and I love kind of the self-awareness in the moment. Before we wrap this thing up, let's talk about our boy Pete. Carter, what are your thoughts?
I think the 3 looks a little bit better, at least percentage-wise, though. It's a weird form, I gotta say. Yeah, it is. It always surprises me on the way up. But he's... What is he? I think he went 2 of 5 against the Magic and went.
He's shooting 50% from 3. He's taking 3 points.
4 of 8 from 3 in his minutes. Had a few nice finishes against Milwaukee. Has run the floor, shown a little bit of open court ball handling. I think the defense, he's just a little stiff. As a defender, he's not a crazy flexible athlete. I'm
it
not
still
sure.
Kind of looks sometimes like it's stop motion. Like I just hear the Ben Wyatt stand in the place where you live when I see him move sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about him still. I think he's shown improvement, shown growth. I think he's definitely like right there on, certainly would love to see him on the Charge next year. It'll be interesting to see if he is, again, he's in that 2-way mix. Chris Fedor reported that, he's in that mix right with Emoni, right with Nwan Tomlin, who I'd like to sneak a little comment on at the end about. And you wonder about, I don't know if Zaire Smith is even 2-way eligible at this point. I know he's much older at this point. But, I think he's been okay. I think his defense was part of the reason why they struggled against Orlando, and I thought he was much better against Milwaukee. So, I don't have a ton to say on old Pete.
Yeah, I think he's a good athlete in some sense. The shot blocking stands out. Like I thought he's had really nice time in there. And like if you're a big that can block shots and shoot threes, there's going to be an opportunity for you. I'd like the rebounding to be just a little bit stronger. Talking about that as one of the things that translates. The fact that he's only averaging 1.8 offensive rebounds per 36 through 2 games doesn't jump off the page, and the playmaking isn't incredibly strong either. But there's enough there that as you said, I would like to see him on the Charge for sure.
Yeah, I did want to sneak a little Nwan Tomlin thing because I did a little homework on the guy.
Look at you!
In the wake of Chris Fedor saying that he was kind of in that like consideration and like a guy the team was interested in. he didn't play high school basketball. And that's a crazy stat. That's a crazy fact. There's a New York Times article about it. I think it's, just kind of an unusual upbringing. And then he bounced around. Played two years of JUCO, then played Kansas State, then went to Memphis. So he's kind of had an all over the place kind of basketball upbringing. But for a guy who didn't even play high school basketball, talk about a fluid athlete, man.
Oh my God, he is such a freak athlete.
Yeah, he's about 6'10" with shoes. Can jump, hit a buzzer beater 3 off the bounce.
A deep one at that.
Yeah, a really fluid finisher with nice touch. I watched a bunch of his tape at Memphis. I asked Maxwell Bombach of No Ceilings, who came on and did our pre-draft pod. He said that if he hadn't had, I think he had some off the court troubles at Kansas State. That's part of the reason why he went to Memphis. But basically was like, if he didn't have that, he thinks he might have been a guy that might have been drafted. So this is a talented prospect that has had a unusual kind of basketball upbringing, and I like that the Cavs are identifying guys like that, even if he doesn't get a two-way spot, even if I remember Billy Preston, they took a shot on him a couple years ago. I was just about to reference where Billy Preston. Guy with either really great measurables or really great pedigree that just things didn't quite go their way. It's let's bring him in, see if we can find a diamond in the rough here and figure out, Dean Wade is a guy like that who was definitely going to be picked, then got hurt at Kansas State and then was all of a sudden available as an undrafted free agent. The Cavs scooped him up. And this is not the sexy part of the scouting job, but I thought it was interesting that they're taking a crack at a guy with a really interesting profile like that. And I've been keeping my eye on him on the floor, and he's made a few splashy things that caught my eye.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get a 6'10" forward, that's a freak athlete. If again, that kind of goes back to the Emoni thing of the physical traits or that the couple skill sets that are there, but maybe not refined. That's one of those things that if you can refine it, if you can, maybe he is not as far along the development curve as you would expect for his age, given the fact that he didn't play high school basketball. And when you find those diamonds in the rough and you're able to capitalize on that, that's really important. That can create value. And especially in this modern CBA environment, finding that cheap value is essential to continuing to keep your window open.
Yeah, you got to have a few players who outkick their coverage, who are more valuable than what you're paying them. And so I like that the scouting team is finding guys like this. I feel like it's a sneaky good thing Kobe and Mike Ganzi's front office is good at.
Yeah, I totally agree. So that'll be someone that I'll probably keep more of an eye on. I appreciate you bringing him up, and we'll see how the rest of these guys continue to fare in summer league. As I said before, I'm interested to see how long they continue to play, and I'd like to see them, make a little bit of a run and keep getting into as many games as possible, which, is 60% selfishness from a content standpoint. And, 40% I want to see the Cavs in any jersey do well. So big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of the Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.